Hello, everybody. How are you today? I have another Bible story for you today. For those of you who are joining one of these videos for the first time, let me tell you what we have going on here. We go through the stories of the Bible for people who don't know what they are. And maybe you've only heard bits and pieces that somebody has told you. Maybe you've never read them for yourself. Whatever the case may be, we go through these stories so that you have the opportunity to know what they are and what they say. If you're watching this video on YouTube, I want to tell you we go live on Facebook, and then when the video's over, we upload it to YouTube. So if you're watching it on YouTube, hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us get enough subscriptions so that eventually we can go live on YouTube also. Before we get started, I would like to talk to you about something completely different than the story that we have been discussing. I want to just take a moment and tell you that I have a friend who God just really put this on my heart last night and today. I have a friend that is in need of a new oven. So evidently, she has been without an oven since Thanksgiving, and I didn't know that, but she doesn't have the means right now to be able to get herself an oven. We've looked into what it would cost to get this fixed, and it would cost more to fix it than the cost of a new stove and oven for her. So I'm going to be doing a fundraiser on this page, and I'll get that set up sometime later today. But I would like for you to think about how you can help this young woman. She is a single mom and has several children that she needs to cook for. And that anybody who's ever been without an oven, and I have been for quite a long period of time actually, knows how frustrating it can be to do all of your cooking on the stovetop and crock pots and things like that. So the Lord put it on my heart that maybe we can all chip in and help her get this. So later today, I'll be posting a little fundraiser, and you can go help out with that. We've been talking about the story of David running away from his son Absalom. Absalom has wrestled the kingdom away from David and is now in pursuit of David. We're going to start with chapter 18 of 2 Samuel. Let's just get right to it. David reviewed, I'm sorry. I am going to say one more thing. I want to back up. Yesterday, I talked to you about the advice that Absalom had gotten from different people. He had gotten advice from Hushai, and he had gotten advice from Ahithophel on how to handle the situation with chasing after his father. And yesterday, I told you that Ahithophel had told him to go after his father and slaughter their troops, and I was incorrect. My brain wasn't engaging properly. I got ahead of myself, and I mixed up names and whatnot, and I apologize for that. That's why it is so important for you to not just listen to me to read these stories to you, because I get things wrong sometimes, but to go and listen to them, go and read them for yourself. Now, let's start with chapter 18. David reviewed his troops and appointed commanders of thousands and of hundreds over them. He then sent out the troops a third under Joab, a third under Joab's brother Abishai, son of Zeruiah, and a third under Ittai of Gath. The king said to the troops, "I must also march out with you." "You must not go," the people pleaded. "If we have to flee, they will not pay any attention to us. Even if half of us die, they will not pay any attention to us because you are worth 10,000 of us. Therefore, it is better if you support us from the city." "I will do whatever you think is best," the king replied to them. So he stood beside the city gate while all the troops marched out by hundreds and thousands. The king commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, "Treat the young man Absalom gently for my sake." All the people heard the king's orders to all the commanders about Absalom. Then David's forces marched into the field, engaged Israel in battle, which took place in the forest of Ephraim. Israel's army was defeated by David's soldiers, and the slaughter there was vast that day. 20,000 dead, The battle spread over the entire area that day, and the forest claimed more people than the sword. Absalom was riding in his mule when he happened to meet David's soldiers. When the mule went under the tangled branches of a large oak tree, Absalom's head was caught fast in the tree. The mule under him kept going, so he was suspended in midair. One of the men saw him and informed Joab. He said, "I just saw Absalom hanging in an oak tree." "You just saw him?" Joab exclaimed. "Why didn't you strike him to the ground right there? I would have given you 10 silver pieces and a belt." The man replied to Joab, "Even if I had the weight of 1,000 pieces of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hands against the king's son. For we heard the king command you, Abishai, and Ittai, protect the young man Absalom for me. If I had jeopardized my own life, and nothing is hidden from the king, you would have abandoned me." Joab said, "I'm not going to waste my time with you." He then took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them into Absalom's chest while Absalom was still alive in the oak tree. 10 young men who were Joab's armor bearers surrounded Absalom, struck him, and killed him. Joab blew the ram's horn, and the troops broke off in their pursuit of Israel because Joab restrained them. They took Absalom, threw him into a large pit in the forest, and raised up a huge mound of stones over him. And all of Israel fled, each to his tent. When he was alive, Absalom had taken a pillar and raised it up for himself in the king's valley, since he thought, "I have no son to preserve the memory of my name." So he named the pillar after himself. It is called Absalom's monument today. Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, said, "Please let me run and tell the king the good news that the Lord has vindicated him by freeing him from his enemies." Joab replied to him, "You are not the man to take good news today. You may do it another day, but today you aren't taking good news because the king's son is dead." Joab then said to a Cushite, "Go, tell the king what you have seen." The Cushite bowed to Joab and took off running. However, Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, persisted and said to Joab, "No matter what, please let me also run behind the Cushite." Joab replied, "My son, why do you want to run since you won't get a reward?" "No matter what, I want to run." "Then run," Joab said to him. So Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran the Cushite. David was sitting between the city gates when the watchman went up to the roof of the city gate and over to the wall. The watchman looked out and saw a man running alone. He called out and told the king. The king said, "If he's alone, he bears good news." As the first runner came closer, the watchman saw another man running. He called out to the gatekeeper, "Look, another man is running alone." "This one is also bringing good news," said the king. The watchman said, "The way the first man runs looks to me like the way Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, runs. This is a good man. He comes with good news," the king commented. Ahimaaz called out to the king, "All is well," and paid homage to the king with his face to the ground. He continued, "Blessed be the Lord your God. He delivered up the men who rebelled against my lord, the king." The king asked, "Is the young man Absalom all right?" Ahimaaz replied, "When Joab sent the king's servant and your servant, I saw a big disturbance, but I don't know what it was." The king said, "Move aside and stand here." So he stood to one side. Just then the Cushite came and said, "May my lord the king hear the good news. The Lord has vindicated you today by freeing you from all who rise against you." The king asked the Cushite, "Is the young man Absalom all right?" The Cushite replied, "I wish that the enemies of my lord the king, along with all who rose up against you with evil intent, would become like that young man." The king was deeply moved and went up to the chamber above the city gate and wept. As he walked, he cried, "My son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." That is the end of chapter 18 of 2 Samuel. There are 3 ways that we look at these verses when we read them. What does it say? We have to have reading comprehension. If we never read the words on the page, we don't know what they say. What was it saying to the people of the time? Who was it written to? We have to read everything in context. We have to know the history, the backstory, what's going on. And what, if anything, is this saying to us today? We see that David had appointed different commanders of troops to go out to fight against Absalom's Israeli army that was coming for them. And they go out and they're fighting. But before they go, David gives this order to them. And he says, "Don't harm my son Absalom. Be kind to him. Be gentle to him." So they go and they're having this big battle now. And as they're fighting, Absalom's in the battle. And David wanted to go out to the battle. And the people said, "No, please don't do that. Don't go, because they will do anything they can to get to you." And so David says, "All right, I'll stay behind, just like you think." But Absalom, however, he does go out to the battle, and he's in pursuit of these men. And while he's going along in the forest, his head gets caught on this branch of this tree. And he gets knocked off his donkey, and he's hanging from this tree. Now, when that happens, one of the soldiers sees this, and he says, "Hey, I just saw Absalom hanging from a tree." He tells Joab this, and Joab says, "Why didn't you kill him? I would have given you some money for killing him." He says, "If you'd have given me all the money in the world, I wouldn't have done it, because I heard the king say, 'Don't jeopardize that young man's life.' I heard him tell you that he commanded that. And it seems to me nothing is hidden from the king." Do you remember when the servant, one of Saul's servants, no, I don't remember if it was his servant now, but one of these guys had come to David to tell him that Saul was dead. And he let him know that he had driven a sword into Saul to help him die. David wasn't happy about that. Even though Saul was his enemy, David was not happy, and he had that man put to death. Surely this soldier had heard that story and was like, "No way am I going to kill somebody that the king doesn't want dead, especially his son." So Joab said, "Well, get out of my way. I'll go do it myself." And he takes 3 swords. He goes 3 spears, it says, and he drives them into Absalom. Absalom evidently falls to the ground, and other people come along and they make sure that he's dead. Now, Ahimaaz, he's a son of Zadok, says, "Please let me run and tell the king everything." To them, this was good news because they won. Basically, they won the battle. And Joab says to him, the king's not going to see this as good news because his son is dead. But Ahimaaz begs. Now they send a Cushite instead, this other person, to go and give David the news. And Ahimaaz gets there first, and he begs, "Please let me go, let me go. I want to tell the king the good news." And so he runs. And David says to him, he hears that the Israelites have been defeated, and he's like, "Okay, but what about my son? What about Absalom?" And Ahimaaz says, "Oh, I don't know. There was some kind of a commotion, but I don't know what that was about." Well, he knew good and well because Joab told him. Joab told him that Absalom was dead. But he didn't say anything. The king says, "All right, well, somebody else is coming. Step to the side. Let me see what they have to say." So the Cushite gets there and explains, "I wish everybody in that army was like your son. In other words, I wish they were all dead." David is completely and utterly grieved, and now he is mourning for his son. And he says, "My son Absalom, my son Absalom. If only I had died instead of you, O Absalom, my son, my son." So David is grieving deeply the loss of his son. What, if anything, do we get out of this today? We see that the ultimate character, of course, of David is that he did not want death to happen. He was willing to accept not having the kingdom if it would have meant that his son would have been able to stay alive. I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in self-defense and justice, personal justice, that rather than letting God take justice on situations, we want to do it ourselves like Joab did. We're going to find out in the next chapter that David's kingdom does become restored to him. But that's for the next chapter. I hope you're learning something. I do hope more than anything that you are finding your own Bible, that you're picking up these stories and you're reading them for yourself. Sometimes I make mistakes. And so it's good if you can read through it and find out for yourself what it has to say and what the Lord is speaking to you about in these verses. Just a reminder that I am going to post a fundraiser here for an oven a new stove and oven for a friend of mine that is a single mom that's in need of that. And so hopefully we can raise some funds for her. In the meantime, if you are on YouTube and you want to see more videos on our Facebook page, go to Facebook and search Get Clear Teachings, and you'll be able to find our page. There are teachings from other people on there, not just my teachings. So enjoy your day. Have a wonderful day, and God bless you.